Welcome to Mediumship Moments with psychic medium Kim Durham. Join her as she shares her personal journey with mediumship, connects with your loved ones, and discusses topics dealing with spirituality.
Hi, everybody. It's Kim Durham, psychic medium here. Welcome to my podcast, Mediumship Moments. Thanks again for listening. Really appreciate it. We've got a bunch of new listeners out there because somebody's videos are going pew viral. So a lot of new faces who have said hello on my social media accounts at Kim Durham Medium on Instagram, Talk, and Facebook. But today here on Mediumship Moments, I wanted to talk about being clairvoyant, or what clairvoyancy is. We talk about the bridge to mediumship, right? Clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairistician. Those are the three that I typically use when I work with somebody mediumship wise. So clairvoyant, it's a term that's believed to come back from French, which clair is the meaning of clear, and voyant meaning seeing, right? Which is derived from voy, right? To see. So clear seeing. And that is someone who is clairvoyant, is someone who perceives images in their mind's eye. And you're like, well, what the hell is the mind's eye? Listen, it's like a TV camera in your head, right? So if I tell you right now to just close your eyes and take a deep breath and picture your favorite peaceful place, right? Picture that. Picture that in your head. Everybody have a picture? Boom. That's your mind's eye. I use it a lot in meditation. So that is a tool that I use, or a lot of people use when you meditate. So that's the mind's eye, right? That TV camera in your head. So that can help me see images that are yet to come to fruition. You're like, so I see things that happen in the future. They also use this ability with the mind's eye, or clairvoyancy, with enhancing, right, your wellness or emotion, or offering like emotional insight or stability. So clairvoyancy is used in a lot of different ways. Meditation, it's used with people like me to see something moving forward in time, or actually your loved ones will show me a picture of something that pertains to something in their life. Now, what do you mean? Well, I just did a podcast with Jack, who talks about his grief journey about losing his fiance suddenly. And he has on TikTok, he sits on the bench and has a moment. He shares his grief journey there. Well, while I was doing the podcast with him, his partner came through, his fiance, Jack. And Jack showed me this mid-century type of photograph that had a white top. And you're like, well, how did you know that? Well, it's like pictures to me. It's like, and I guess my background in photography kind of plays a role in it. And sure enough, they had bought it together, and he still has it. And it's one of his favorite pieces. So take that if you think I'm Googling. Anyway, so clairvoyant, right? Someone that we perceive this image in mind's eye, right? So, they're again mentally believed to source from a psychic energy. So I get all of these images, right? So you all have an image, right? Haven't you had an image of somebody mentioned someone's name, and boom, you have an image come to your head, and you've never met that person. Well, how the hell did you know that they looked like that? It's kind of like that. It happens quickly. So for me, as I've said, it's a picture in my head. So when I work on murder cases or cold cases, it's a combination of pictures that appear like a movie clip. And, I know from experience that, like, for instance, I'm working on a cold case up in Pennsylvania. And I could see where this little girl is. where her body lies, and I could see around the area what geographically she's close to. And you're like, wow. And I'm like, I say wow too, because I don't know how I do this. And I say that lovingly. I don't know how I do this. I meditate before I work, and that's about it. And it happens. But I started to describe things geographically that I have no idea where she is. I mean, I say that like I'm not given, at this point, I wasn't given a map, but I started to describe this rural area. I talked about mine stacks coming from an industrial area, and that I could see mines. And yes, in fact, that's where those areas correlate to where we believe her to be. So it narrows down a geographical area for people to come out with cadaver dogs to find her. And you're like, well, how did you start seeing this? I would just start to see pictures, But then again, my mom helped me really enhance this ability. So she would put a little box. She put a playing card in it. And I could put my hand over it or just look at it. She says, all right, Kimmy, tell me, is it red or is it black? And you're like, you got a 50% shot there. Well, when you get 10 out of 10 right, and I'm not showing off, but I scared the bejeebus out of a teacher when she did that in class. Anyway, shout out to Mrs. Gale. And then she'd ask me, well, is there a number? And is there a suit? You know the suit, right? Is it hearts? Is it? Okay. So these are little exercises fun games we would do to enhance this ability. And this is how I teach my students as well. All right. Put something in the box. Tell me if it's shiny. Do you see a shape? Do you see a color? Do you see a texture? The hardest part about doing clairvoyancy is getting out of the way of the logical thinking mind. And I'll get you back to meditation, right? When I take you on a meditation to work with me, I do that to relax you, to link with the energies around you. And if you notice during the meditation, I always give you something to do. Some meditations talk about the breath. All right, take a deep breath. Why am I doing that? Because your mind has to be busy doing something. And for you people on ADHD, you're a whole different level when you sit with me about that. But so the mind always has to be busy, right? So these little unique kind of tools are a tool towards mediumship and how you build all of this. So clairvoyancy is a big one, obviously, that I work on with murder cases and cold cases. And, the movie clip that I see is just a compilation of lots of pictures, really. And I know that from history, it's something negative. On that one case of this little girl that I believe is crossed, and it's a cold case, I know she was memorialized. And I talked about items that I believe they'll find with her. And if we can narrow down the region that she's in, which is what I'm working on, I'll go up and work with cadaver dogs to find her, to bring her home. So that's part of the clairvoyancy of working, right? So I interpret this energy or the television data and the visual images that I'm seeing to be able to draw them and give that to the police or the PIs or whomever is working on the case. So when I do this work, right, clairvoyancy is a gathering, if you will, of energy, of surrounding energies and symbols and scenes and images that are the pieces to the puzzle for working on cases. And because of my photography background, I think it's just easier for me. Some people are highly visual, right? If somebody tells you, it says, listen, I'm going to go down the long driveway. It's tree lined. There's a circular driveway. The house is brick, big mansion, dates back to the early 20th century. Right. Are you driving down that gravel road? Do you have the tree lined? Right? Do you have the fences on both sides? We come through and there's an opening and there's a circular driveway. There's a fountain in the middle and there's a brick house. Can anybody picture that? Again, that's how I work, very visually. Again, the clairvoyance ability, ancient cultures have talked about where spirituality is closely linked to their everyday life. Native Americans would have medicine men or tribe leaders who would see like great battles coming. And it was said that in Custer's last stand, his Indian guide, Bloody Knife, for instance, forewarned Custer of the defeat because Bloody Knife had had visions of these images of the battle yet to be fought at Little Bighorn. And this comes from Custer's own diary that he wrote this in, and his second lieutenant's diary that was found at the site. So there's been people like me throughout the ages who have this ability. And I believe all of us, some people are more visual. Those people that are creative. Like I interviewed Haley Page and she talked about an image that she gets in her head, right? So we have these images that we have in our head. And some of them we use to be able to develop and create something, whether it's a picture, a photograph, something attainable. For those of us that are in the spiritual realm or any other day, if I start to verbally tell you an image, you all gather an image in your head. And for those that are working in this field, the images that we see, for instance, if you give me a photograph, I was given a photograph of this little girl. I started to describe her house. How would I know that? To me, it's a picture within a picture. But those exercises I talked about would help. People in Greece, the people like me were highly respected. It was called the Oracle of Delphi. And they connected to the god Apollo, and who being well-known for his prophetic messages delivered by the priestess named Phia. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to ancient Greece. Studied Latin for a couple of years, maybe 4. So she would enter into a trance and share mysterious insights that required kind of interpretation. And so that, it kind of shows you that the esteem that society held for those that were believed to possess these kind of clairvoyant abilities. Even in ancient Egypt, clairvoyance played a significant role in the religious practices. So it is something it's a sixth sense, if you will, that some of us have a little higher ability with. And, like the Egyptians, they talked about some people talk about it being in a dream. For me, it happens while I'm awake. For the most part, when I sleep, I'm out. So I wanted to talk about a type of clairvoyance or psychic ability that is used in finding people. It's called remote viewing. And it's kind of like what I alluded to when I saw the picture of this little girl, the case I'm working on in Pennsylvania, is that I could start to see left and right of where my body was or is, geographically, the location. And there are some really well-known. Now, what is remote viewing, right? Remote viewing is the ability to lock in on an image that is, pretty much perceived at a distant or hidden location. It could be an object. It could be an event. It is a psychic ability. And they have used this extensively. So, and who has used it? The military. Okay. The military absolutely has used this. They used it up until, from what I understand, for troop movement during the Iraq War. So, Joseph McEagle McMonagle. That's it. Pardon me, I messed it up. He's a retired U.S. Army chief warrant officer. And he's participated in experiments and missions during the Cold War that were related to what's called Stargate Project. And that was Stanford research, but with the CIA. And anyway, they can use these abilities to be able to find missing people. And when I tell you missing, they'll give you the latitude or longitude, exactly precise locations. And he's just extremely, psychic. People show a picture and say, where's this kid? Boom. And he can just, for me, and he can give you the longitude, latitude, like I said. For me, when I'm trying to help find a missing person, I see the Google image and I see what direction they've gone. It's kind of like an energy path. For those of us here that are crossed, I link with the energy of that person and look through their eyes. So the child that's crossed, I'm looking through her eyes on the spiritual side without getting too funky and being able to turn left and right and see what's around my body. Pam Coronado is a wonderful psychic medium who is on Facebook. You should look her up. She does have classes to teach you this or to help heighten this ability. But, the CIA through the Stargate Project has used these abilities quite a bit. That's all that stuff they won't talk about, right? But the gentleman who's known, Ingo Swann, right, is a widely recognized pioneer of remote viewing. And he turned the coin of remote viewing. There's a document from scientific scrutiny about this project, the Stargate Project, but it has been very successful. There is success that I know of well-known psychic mediums who have found people, and also that gentleman I spoke of, McMonagle, who to this day, even though he's retired, if there's an absolute, I know of a case in Idaho where this little boy was missing, and he was about 3 years old, and it was he had already been missing 18 hours, and they had feared because of the region that he was in, and the mountainous region and the temperatures plunging, that this child would die. And so they woke this man up, and he gave them coordinates. So, bless him for doing that. It's got to be exhausting to have that ability and have people. You never get a chance to have some downtime. It could be like that, for me as well over it. But nonetheless, that's remote viewing, right? Where it's kind of like your drone view I talk about, where I'm above Google Earth, and then I'm brought in drone view to tell you the region and what I can see around it. And then I'm brought even closer to within 100 yards. To 100 feet, a mile to 100 yards to 100 feet is the best way I can describe it. So clairvoyancy, there's exercises to build it. There's exercises to use it. For those of us that are training and teaching people, it's an essential bridge to mediumship. And again, the worst part is to get your cognitive mind out of the way, because you want to say, okay, so there's a box in front of me, and I'm like, oh, it's black inside it. Okay, this item, is it steel? Is it heavy? Well, the logical mind wants to say, well, it's a small box. You couldn't have something heavy in a small box. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of self-doubt talk gets in the way. And you just have to write. I write down exactly what I say. I see what I say what I say. And if you can start to do this with this ability, you too have clairvoyancy. It's part of that. It's as easy as that. So it's critical for me for any of the cases I work on. It is essential for anybody really who sits with me, the things that I see. Even if I do psychometry, which is holding on to objects, I see pictures. I will describe their home. I will describe, certain aspects of their life. based upon the images that I'm seeing psychically gained by holding on to an object. That's psychometry. But it pretty much is clairvoyancy. It's the seeing of those images. So I hope that gives you a better idea of what clairvoyancy is, right? It's a picture in your head. We all have this ability. Put a playing card in a little box and see if your kid can figure that out, just for smiles and giggles. Why not? Be a fun little game on a rainy day when you're down at the beach. But it's a crucial part of working on murder cases and missing persons for me. And right now I'm working on quite a few. I am enjoying working with a state trooper who has been fantastic. I'm honored. He just has just a wonderful, he's an earthbound angel trying to work on these cold cases, and he's had quite a bit of success. So I'm honored to work with him. So as always, I leave you with a mediumship moment. This one just happened to me recently. I don't try and work outside the studio, people. I just don't. I really don't. I have to meditate to open up this energy. And if I stay open all the time, I'm a battery. I'm going to leak out and it's going to stop. And that's what's going to happen. I'm going to get sick. So I was sitting to get my hair done recently. And this person's kind of new to doing my hair. But she knows what I do professionally. And so we're going over, she's what style and what kind of I like about what she did. And maybe we could change this. And so I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I can hear this guy coming through. And I can, how do they come through? I can see them sometimes. Sometimes I just hear them first. And I heard his voice. There's a male voice coming through. And then I saw an image, had a beard. It's funny. And he crossed quickly. And he showed me heart. Okay. So my stylist is cutting my hair. I'm just, and I'm just listening to this guy talking to me. And he shows me he had a heart attack. Okay. All right. And he wants to talk to her, the stylist who's doing my hair. And I'm like, is this really a good time? Just saying. So I asked her, I said, would you be open to a message of somebody who's crossed? Because again, it's not all about me and my ability. She's here. She's working professionally. I'm her client. I don't want to overstep any bounds. And she goes, oh, sure. I'd love to hear from someone. Okay. I said, would you understand a father figure who crossed quickly, unexpectedly, a heart attack, but I feel like he's on the married side? She said, I said, through the ring. And she goes, that would be my father-in-law. Okay. So I started to describe him. She goes, oh my God, yes. I said, he has a wicked sense of humor. Oh my God, he was so known. I said, he's busting on my ovaries. That's what I called it, about disability and about, he didn't believe in people like me, that Teresa Caputo, And here he is using somebody like Teresa to get a hold of his daughter-in-law. So the father-in-law comes forward. He's showing me tools and that he's like, general contractor. And he's showing me that he's working on a bar being built. And he's overseeing and he's watching a guy, I think he's down on his knees and he was doing something behind the bar, kind of like trim work. So the father's sitting there with his feet up. He's got a beer down at the bar. And he goes, I love this. This looks fantastic. Tell Nick he's doing a great job. Well, she about fell out of, I think at that point she might have taken a little too much hair off because her father-in-law, his son that she's married to, Nick, at that exact moment was putting together a bar, trimming out a bar in their home. And that's how Dad came forward to tell his daughter-in-law, but to pass the message on to his son, how proud he is of the work that he's been doing at the house and doing work around the house to make it their own. And especially proud of the work that he's doing on the bar, because at that time, Nick was doing that and working with his dad's tools. So that's your mediumship moment for today's episode. I thank you again for listening on Amazon and Spotify and kimdorm.com. It's my website. Check out my events coming up. I'm going to be doing some traveling in the summer. And as always, keep chatting with your angels because they can hear you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for another episode of Mediumship Moments. If you enjoyed this episode of Kim's podcast, check her out on Instagram and TikTok at Kim Durham Medium.